questions? Thank you.
Time for questions.
Hold up the book.
Hold up the book, Charlie says. I'll hold up 5 copies of the book. And I'll say no more. Pardon me? No, not really.
How much of the difficulty you described do you think is a function of the pace of technological change and the culture's inability to keep up with that? It seemed to me that you were describing in the early portions we were talking about cultures in which people were more or less in control of information and how they received it, whereas that's clearly gone now.
Well, there's 2 ways of looking at that, and it's a really good question, Charlie. The fact of the matter is as many people have suggested, we have so much information that comes to us so quickly, and we have the vague term information glut, but what it really suggests is that our filters, we have imposed on ourselves a set of filters, which we can either use to try to sort through this and find the most important information, which as a former president would say is hard work. Or we can use our filters to just give us the information that makes us feel better.
Mm-hmm. The impact on the process.
Right, so the other side, unfortunately, of looking at this, and this is something that Jacques Ellul would talk a lot about in his book, The Technological Society and in Propaganda, is that it is tragically, I think, especially for the technologically developed Western world in general, but especially for Americans, we have internalized this myth of progress. And we refuse to look at this onslaught of information as anything but progress. We don't think of it as a problem. We want more information, and we want it faster. Try it in your classes, by the way. Ask the students what's better before you put an argument based on some sort of evidence of why it may not be so. Ask them which is better, more information or less information? Which is better, faster information or slower information? They always go for more and faster. It's just like an attitudinal thing. If you give them time, then they'll think, well, wait a second. More information isn't always better. And sometimes if you get it too fast, there's not enough time, they think in very pragmatic terms, there's not enough time to fact check it. But the usually immediate answer is that, yeah, more is better and fast is better.
In what you've said today, I hear a lot of Catholic philosophy and Catholic social teaching, and I'm wondering
Couldn't hide it.
what's that?
I couldn't hide it.
Well, and I've got a good detector. I'm wondering
You're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you found the work of Bernard Lonergan helpful when he talks about the importance of self-appropriation as a necessary step to valuation, to deciding what is good and what we want to hang on to.
No, and I'm going to confess to you that I am woefully ignorant of a lot of Lonergan's work. People have been telling me to read him for a long time.
He's hard.
I'm probably, some of the best Catholic social teaching I've read was from Neil Postman, who was Jewish,
Right.
and Jacques Ellul, who was an atheist and then a Reformed Christian. Now, I don't know that I have a bias against getting my Catholic social teaching from Catholics. I
know what you're talking about.
Being a Catholic myself, I tend to be very skeptical about what Catholics say to me. But yeah, so no, I do need to look at Lonergan.
Yeah, we should talk later.
Okay.
Yeah, I found his work really helpful in thinking about pedagogy.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
In your example of the Middle Ages and the printing press,
My much truncated example. Yes.
At the same time that was happening, before that, you have the example of the Muslim world, the autumn, where there was the same book. You still have the book, which was the authority, but you also had that scientific, that huge boom and the connection to the Greeks. So does that undermine your argument that you have the text and that fixes you? I mean, And it didn't, it wasn't the same in that world as it was in the Western world, as in Europe.
No, it wasn't exactly the same. The fact of the matter is, you know, at the time that Islam was still a couple of centuries away at the time of Augustine and the banning of Aristotle, the Arab world did not care to see Aristotle banned. So he was already much more assimilated into the Arab world, into Arab thought by the time Islam came around than medieval Europe. But to think that there was no conflict there between Quran and Aristotle is Averroes and Avicenna had to walk intellectual tightrope with their, both being champions of Aristotelian thought, but still trying to maintain credibility as Muslims. So it wasn't completely, it was a different environment, and yes, things were assimilated differently. They had a few more centuries by the 12th century to deal with Aristotle and their unchanging text than the Christians did. But to say that there was no conflict, I think, is a misreading. Larry?
Yeah, Peter, I got the sense, and please help me understand if I'm right or not, that what we consider to be progress is in fact the loss of something. It's almost like paradise lost when you go from oral to electronic. Is that, did I follow you correctly, that there was, I guess, a bridge between immediacy and transcendency, or what have you, in a less engineered sense of communication was actually preferable to what we have now?
Well, oral cultures tend to see time move in a cycle. There's no sense of forward movement. This is a metaphor that only literate people use, that the future is in front of us, the past is behind us. Oral cultures tend to see everything as kind of just cycling through birth, death, birth, growth, death, regeneration. So that question, the question that you just asked, wouldn't even make sense. Progress is an invention. It's an invention of the 18th century. It's an idea, which is not to say that we can't use that idea in a productive way. But strictly speaking, there is no such thing as progress. There's only change. The change can be something that presents advantages to us, in which case we can call it progress. Or the change can be something that presents us with more obstacles or challenges than it does with advantages. Our problem is that we tend to see everything, every new technology, as progress. And all it is change. And we don't know yet what the parameters of that change, what the consequences of that change are going to be.
Were you saying that?
I hate to say it, but just because you have an iPhone doesn't make you cool.
That's right. It just makes us convenient. Could you, in terms of we're dealing with change, could your devil of electricity then could eventually be a good thing? Because so far right now you consider the ultimate evil.
Oh, I never said that.
You said when electricity was introduced in messaging, everything seemed to go downhill.
I never said that.
Right.
I said there was a change.
You gave the impression once it started with the telegraph, when the way was all bad. It was all bad.
Lynn, can I have another 45 minutes?
No.